This stat will make you feel old. Overwatch is about to have its 10th anniversary. It'll actually be this time next year, which is a little spooky. And when we left off with the game, right, they had reintroduced loot boxes, they made sweeping game changes, and they revealed Stadium. Of course, Overwatch 2 PvE will never happen. Don't even think about it. It's just not realistic. And with so much of their team being axed, it's probably also, well, quite impossible for Overwatch 2 PvE to ever happen. But all the stuff that they did was in an attempt to rehabilitate Overwatch. But for all of that buzz, since it all launched, I haven't really heard much, and that is why I am here today, to work out what the hell has actually happened with Overwatch. Overwatch is a great game, but an awful product. That has been my personal TLDR for this one for a long time. The idea being that it's fun, but it's kind of busted by the circumstances of its creation, by the desperate business model stuff over the last few years, and lots of the trend-chasing brand collab skins that just make me feel old and out of touch. Not because I don't like the brands, but because I'd like my Overwatch to be Overwatch, and, not be an advertisement for a bunch of other brands so everyone can make money. Anyway, all of that stuff did kind of piss players off, pissed me off, and pissed off players will not cut you any slack if you're a dev team. So it seems that's what they worked on first, getting the product part under a little bit of control. Now on that front, the Returnal loot boxes basically gave people an incentive to continue playing with only the Battle Pass as a payment. That's definitely a positive. Even the premium crossover cosmetics for WoW and Diablo are being included in the loot boxes as of Season 16. That's pretty good. Now, we're still seeing the same high as hell rate of crossovers with Gundam and Street Fighter, but now the players don't have to pay to get access to anything, they're perhaps a bit more willing to extend Overwatch some good faith. It feels a little bit less like an aggressive relationship. So, that's Blizzard's opening. Let's see how they've tried to exploit it, and if it's actually worked. Stadium is the big new feature, and to recap, it's a new mode for Overwatch 2. It takes the 5v5 formula and it breaks it down into 7-round matches. Players basically choose from one of 17 available heroes, and then you play rounds of Overwatch, except that firstly, right, it's all playable in third person, so that's kind of new. And secondly, every hero can use earned Stadium cash to purchase new upgrades that will alter your gameplay style in dynamic ways. Basically, right, it's kind of like the Counter-Strike shop, right? You do it in between rounds. There are some neat catch-up mechanics around taking out high performers so that things actually stay competitive. It's kind of neat. It's very much Overwatch's core hero ability formula, but where you're adding in a layer of complexity as you wish as you build out their character. Now, to kind of explain this, Aaron Keller broke it down in terms of 3 player needs that they've tried to hit. The first one is more downtime, like literally the time in between rounds. And that's so that Overwatch isn't just this constant objective brawl that just kind of leaves you tired. You know, you need ups and downs, you need pace. It's something that Counter-Strike does real well. The second thing is to emphasize strategy, and the third is a big one. It's to let you counter your enemies via your upgrade path for your character, rather than just, say, swapping heroes. And for a lot of people, I mean, like me, I just have 1 or 2 characters I really enjoy playing. Being able to counter my opponents via upgrades without having to change, that's actually really good. So, this all sounds quite great on paper, and it's clearly a fairly huge feature, not just like a random new mode like Clash. And here's what makes it interesting: the reality now that it's actually live and in players' hands. Here's the stat that got me interested in making this video. So, over the first week of Stadium's release, it saw 7.8 million hours of play across 2.3 million matches, and that was approximately 50% of Overwatch's total playtime during that period. So, per playtime, this has had a goddamn humongous release, and broadly, the reaction seems to be consistent engagement with the actual mode. So, over here, we've been tracking the responses and, all of that stuff, keeping tabs and things, and the thing that we noticed is that it seems to be one of those quiet success things where players are just enjoying it, they're playing it. And that might seem a bit weird, because Overwatch 2 has been in the news kind of all the time, but never for good reasons. It's always been a fresh new form of outrage. So the idea that people are actually just playing a mode in the game, that's not really news. It's not interesting. It's not really talked about. It's not why Overwatch caught on in the media, at least in the modern era. Now, it's not as if everything went perfectly. There were some early issues, stompy matchmaking, some friction with player experiences in the new systems, but after a day, we actually saw the Overwatch team addressing a whole bunch of things, and after a week, they were already outlining changes. Keller then confirmed that a build importer and exporter is going to be coming into the game next season, so you can transfer builds alongside crossplay as soon as possible, which is quite a lot. And I think requests like this coming from players are a huge indicator of product market fit, and Blizzard's responses actually seem uncharacteristically, well, fast. They're not normally fast, and the reason why I think is real simple: institutional power and backing. Essentially, this is a game feature that has got backing and buy-in up and down the chain. I mean that, like, structurally within Blizzard. So in practical terms, that means that while it's not like there's an entire team making a parallel game, Overwatch 2 does have, and I just quote Aaron here, totally separate team of people that are solely devoted to working in Stadium. Now, of course, there are shared teams like, map design, hero design, but basically, you get the point here. This is them kind of opening up a new front in the war. And I think that's why their roadmap covers 4 seasons worth of updates, just like the rest of Overwatch. So this doesn't seem to be an experiment. And so far, by the way, that roadmap is new maps, more characters, more abilities, and sub-modes. One of those is a payload race that will come with 2 bespoke maps, which seems pretty cool. And what it looks like is a commitment. But I actually would say it isn't just that. It isn't just a commitment. What it is new. This is a new game mode. And yeah, there's inspirations from other games, but this essentially is new creativity. It's a new vision finally coming to Overwatch. To me, that's what makes all the difference. For far too long, Blizzard's modern teams have felt like stewards of other people's successes, right? And when you are just a steward of someone else's success, you get just stuck into tweaking little things here or there, while your players look at your game and think, we're bored, there's nothing new, we don't care. So in that context, and with all the bullshit headwinds they faced, no wonder that's a team that is continually being a day late and a dollar short. But with this, they're creating something new that's of tremendous signaling value to lapsed players, because it's actually them moving forward on their own terms, which is, I'll be clear, the only way that they will ever escape from the shadow of PvE being well and truly dead. Okay, you know me, if numbers exist, I've got to take a peek at them. So Season 16, and by the way, I'm using Steam numbers. From what we understand, Steam is a fairly tiny proportion of Overwatch overall. We're just using this as kind of an indicator. So Season 16 launched with a 60k peak, which is neck and neck with Season 15's 59.5k peak. And those peaks are actually of numbers that used to be their weekly norm. I mean, the overall graph really doesn't look good, does it? But as anyone in software as a service will tell you, churn is king, retention is king. And that's where this season is looking, at least initially, a little bit different. So, you know the way that movies are tracked in terms of their week-to-week box office drop? Well, Season 15's week 1 to 2 drop was 41.66% in peak numbers. Season 16's is 33.19, which is drastically lower. But there is a problem. That's just peak numbers. If you're to ask, what about the averages? Well, the data is early, but at least right now, the average player numbers do seem to be stronger. And overall, it is too early to call this a success, but if retention numbers appear to be better, whilst 50% of playtime is going towards the new mode, then that certainly is a good sign. What it also can be is a pressure valve. You see, Overwatch has suffered from trying to please everybody, right? With broadly the same sort of game mode. Stadium arriving and being a better fit for a sizable chunk of players will help to ease that tension. I mean, already we've seen character-changing perks get added and be well-received, plus patches to introduce and adjust those things as the feedback comes through. That's fairly agile looking, pretty good. Meanwhile, over in Ranked, well, pick bans and map voting have seemingly reinvigorated some interest. Not a transformational amount, but hey, some. And across both, there's now a 6v6 queue that's attracted a 25% pick rate, and so it's actually getting to stay around after a few months of testing and tweaking. Now, none of those things are generating the buzz that Stadium is able to generate, but what they do kind of represent is the foundations being stronger. And that's probably all playing into why Blizzard have opted to bring BlizzCon back for 2026 and not 2025. Nothing impacts the future of a game more than the conditions under which that game is made. So, why did Overwatch 2 happen? I think the answer is, in many ways, tension. Because on the one hand, the Overwatch devs wanted to crawl themselves towards their cancelled MMO called Titan. On the other hand, Bobby Kotick was personally invested in pushing the Overwatch esports. That was a recipe for disaster. Now, though, we have a new, perhaps slimmer Team 4 that at the very least is not left cobbling together a sequel from components of a dead PvE game that they tried to make without proper support from their C-suite. Because that's how how Overwatch 2 happened. They cobbled it together in no time, and this is all happening without C-suite mandates around esports, which, to jog your memory, was absurdly overhyped at the time and was something that Bobby Kotick had, Eye of Sauron'd himself over to and seemingly latched onto from a lot of reporting. Seriously, people on the Overwatch team really seem to have hated Kotick. And while many of those staff members will never see the thing that they wanted in the game, at least to me, Stadium is this new team progressing from stewardship to authorship. And that's where I think there's a fairly significant change. And it's one that we can contrast with Apex Legends, right? Because Apex feels like managed decline. And the best way to dispel feelings of managed decline, funnily enough, is to ship new content that doesn't feel like it's an old thing that's been cheaply thrown into the microwave. In shipping Stadium, that is what they have done. Now, this is by no means a guarantee that Overwatch 2 line go up and it's all going to be good in the future, right? It's not a guarantee of that, but I do think it marks a changing point. And if you want to understand just how bad EA's situation is and why the Apex Legends players are very much not happy, well, watch our report on that situation next.